The victor's spoils, how BAP's triumph reshapes the right. By Bruno. As Election Day passes, yet another seminal moment in history unfolds. Donald J. Trump is the winner and yet again President of the United States. Despite the DNC's base shouting from inside their bubble on Kamala's imminent victory, or certain actors in the dissident sphere particular attempts to undermine the Trump campaign, major gains was made in the presidency, the Senate, and the House. To the victors goes the spoils, and the spoils turns into an interesting ability to shift the momentum to the right's dissident movement. In particular, the shift provides one faction overtaking another. As it stood during the election, the sphere was essentially bifurcated between pro-Trump and anti-Trump, and these factions represented themselves under their main figures. For those pushing rhetoric against the Trump victory were the remnant of the 2016 era. This group is comprised of former YouTubers in the sphere such as Nick Fuentes, Richard Spencer, JF Garaipi, and so on. This camp, due to its hang-up on Trump's foreign policy during his last administration, and their direct focus on Jewish power, put them firmly in skepticism against anything MAGA-related. The fallout of Trump's loss in 2020, now proven to be most likely stolen, and the unfolding of January 6th left these men and their followers, such as the Groypers, cynical towards anything from this upcoming administration. On the other end of the aisle stands those affiliated or associated with Bronze Age pevert, otherwise referred to as BAP. The BAP sphere comprised mostly of Twitter-based figures, men such as BAP, Raw Egg Nationalist, Captive Dreamer, Martin, and so on. The strategy among these men involved writing everything on supporting the Trump campaign. Captive Dreamer, a well-known Twitter/X user in the BAP sphere, brought to the forefront of the election the issue unfolding involving Haitian migrants in places such as Springfield, Ohio. The action done by this sphere had managed to bring these topics and its rhetoric of migrants consuming domesticated animals to the debate stage. It should also be noted that now Vice President J.D. Vance follows many of these accounts on Twitter, with victory for them bringing immense optimism, and now a foot in the door for future influence on the administration. The influence simply does not stop at the administration either. The implication of Trump's victory now can create an immense shift in not only mindset, but as well as the demographics within the dissident sphere. The period of 2016 to 2020 within these dissident spheres was an explosion outwards of ideas and rhetoric. Figures brought to the forefront such as Alternative Hypothesis, Ryan Falk, Jared Taylor, and the aforementioned Richard Spencer had directly confronted their opposition head on various topics. For this time, the focal point around the sphere was a great battle to prove the truth, and to weaponize truth to break through old conventions on how politics was discussed. The introduction of the BAP sphere has the main cultural spearhead providing a shift in the right. A de facto Nietzschean group, their interests lie towards aesthetics. Many of these figures flaunt the subject of human beauty, promoting exercise and bodybuilding, as well as rehabilitating white women into the sphere. With men such as Captive Dreamer's success in influencing Trump's campaign, it is action that is the main focal point of the movement. No longer is leadership in the sphere solely in the form of a streamer e-celeb with an introverted and reclusive lifestyle. Rather, the figureheads among the BAP sphere are well in shape, or at least heavily promoting it, and are academically successful men. Most of them maintained their anonymity rather than the faces of those on camera. They presented themselves as detached egos from whatever real-life personality they have. Most importantly, this change signifies a transition from inwards politics to outward politics. As mentioned before, in the previous decades the dissident sphere has been far more interesting in debating on matters within. Arguments over the subject of race, religion, and philosophy were the focal points at this time. Figures in the sphere clashed, sparking a trend at the time known as blood sports. At the time the right was invested solely on inwards politics, favoring the attempts to control the direction of the movement. This was represented no better than in the thought wars that took place between those like Fuentes against those like YouTuber Dissident Woes. The subject of the nature of women in the movement was decided around the time of various streams, tweets, and videos. Ultimately, these conflicts fizzled out as the debate ran their course, and due to the audience losing interest and the strategy of Google to suppress these figures on their platform. After numerous blunders of events such as Charlottesville and the eventual loss of the 2020 election, the battle of inward politics had all but died out with a whimper. As time passed, the BAP sphere gained more and more influence. This faction, as it progressed, had very little interest in repeating the same cycle. For them, everything was geared towards the political enemy, a general opposition of the left, a conglomerate enemy of the federal government, and other elements. The focus for this faction turned slowly to outward politics. For the BAP sphere, all things internally and concepts of truth were taken as a given, with little interest in debating them. Occasionally, one would see a post on X Twitter by BAP himself or other users downplaying and confronting factions and topics such as HBD, human biodiversity, but rather than tackling it over minute and specific natures of fact, they rejected a full dive into such views as determined to their focus on outward politics. Aesthetics are of a main focal point, and so attraction towards the simpler and good for the battles is of greater importance. Rather than the subject of race as a scientific concept, it all comes intuitively. What is white has no debate room in this faction, as everyone amongst them understands beforehand without greater discussion. All those within the BAP sphere have been geared towards their key strategy of backing the Trump campaign and rallying around a candidate as a pure bloc in opposition to their enemies. Even during conflicts between these factions, we see these mentalities manifest. For groupers, their main concern about BAP and affiliating personalities is their presence as a Jewish influence within the right. Despite touting as an outside enemy, the main driving point of their enemy's Jewish and Zionist influence circled back to their point on inward politics, seeing this as part of their attempt to have the Jewish question the core subject of the focus in the right. The BAP sphere, on the other hand, viewed Fuentes and his associates as federal agents. They are seen as purely outwards enemies with no debate of the nature of the federal government, but simply as an opponent, turning their conflict with that faction into a mold of outward politics. This in turn reflects the ability and competency each respective faction had in the election. The comparison of political strategy can be made between the two on the influence one had versus the other, running in contrast to the ability of a small-time Anglo-Canadian Twitter user on the Haitian immigration crisis, in the supposed massive alluring a figure like Nick Fuentes has. Fuentes, after this reinstating onto X Twitter, launched his foray into influencing the election, which he named Graper War 2. The focus is not only countersignaling the Trump campaign, but in a covert way attempting to represent the voices of the right. Many took to Twitter X, calling to have Trump fire his campaign managers such as Susie Wiles over the narrative that they tried to run a losing strategy for him. Despite their claims, it seems not only was their campaign manager overtly successful in running Trump all the way to the White House, but that Susie Wiles also now has a place in Trump's cabinet as chief of staff. Along with online rallying, an attempt in real-life politics proved to be a great blunder after blunder. The half-baked event of AFPAC ended in E-celeb Sneeko losing part of his tooth at a location they randomly relocated after failing to secure the original venue. Certain minority and black members of the Grapers tried to convince those in line to a Trump rally that he was controlled opposition, met only with ridicule and rejection. Their focus on inward politics in an attempt to have their mainstream align with their views proven to be a gigantic failure. Despite Puente's supposed massive viewer base, he had equated to having a no real change within the sphere, nor politics as a whole. The strategy itself not only failed, but captured the consistent failure of this demographic in the distant right. The bifurcation of this population is soundly split along the lines of personality. It is quite clear why one side is far more palpable and prepared to take the momentum in politics if they choose to. The conflict is that of black pill versus white pill, a confrontation of mindset between snaring cynicism and naive optimism. For the time being, the BAP sphere, in its views expressing vigor and pushes towards a youthful outlook onto the world. For those such as the Groypers, hard skepticism, decline-oriented outlook is inherently frail, reflecting an elderly mindset with little motivation or drive. The future is not set in stone, but one mindset has triumphed over another in this election. This age of the distant sphere is shifting outwards towards problem solving in a societal scale. The age of battling over in-group direction within the sphere had long passed. Those who wishes to remain in the age shall continue to repeat those same mistakes. The future of this movement belongs to the youthful, not purely in age but in mindset. For those who see nothing but a bright future provides immense opportunities.